Well, it looks like you just clicked on a beginner core Guardian build video. Good choice. If you are new to Guild Wars 2 and you picked Guardian, congratulations, you just made the best choice. Or maybe you're just new to Guardian, in which case you made the right choice in switching. But before you dive into all the elite spec builds, you need a strong core Guardian build to get you there. In this video, I'm going to go over one of the strongest core Guardian build setups for general open world play. This build will carry you through the game either solo or in a group, and I do believe it's free to play friendly as well. As far as I know, at least. Maybe someone who knows the free-to-play limitations a little bit better can confirm that for me. Okay, so this is going to be a condition damage-based Guardian that will focus on burning damage. Your focus will be stacking up burning on your targets, which can result in some pretty good sustained damage against powerful enemies. But also, mass amounts of burning can easily burn through large groups of enemies as well. With the high Condi damage stat paired with the build's burning enhancement traits, the damage from this build can get really high once you master the basic skill combos and rotations. Like I said, it's beginner friendly, so full ascended gear is not necessary, and all the best in slot upgrades are also not necessary. Just to prove that, all the gameplay you're going to see here is using exotic level gear and some of the budget friendly upgrade choices. Okay, let's start with the gear on this build. For stats, we're going to run Carrion on everything, that's power, vitality, Condi damage. If you feel you want a little more tankiness, you could swap in some dire pieces for extra toughness, but don't use too much. You will want power stats. I'll explain why when we get to the build traits. For the armor rune, go with Rune of Balthazar. This will give bonus Condi damage and increase burning duration. On your accessories, if they're exotic like mine, use an exquisite Chrysocolla jewel. Use one of those on your accessories to get the most stat increase you can. For weapons, we take Greatsword and Scepter Torch. An argument can be made to use Sword Torch and Greatsword, or Sword and Scepter Torch, but I think Greatsword is the best for burst potential, fast hitting, and CC. And Scepter Torch is important because I really do think open world builds can begin to struggle without a ranged option to switch to. Feel free to try whatever setup you think might work better for you, but I would recommend sticking with Greatsword Scepter Torch. For sigils, we take Smoldering for a burn duration increase, and Bursting for a Condi damage increase. For the record, Bursting is expensive, so if you don't want to spend all that gold just to try this build, that's fair. Instead, you can try Sigil of Geomancy, Sigil of Earth, or even Sigil of Corruption to build up some bonus Condi damage stacks with every kill. However, if you decide you like Burn Guardian and will stick with it for a while, it is worth investing in the Bursting Sigil. They really are the best Condi damage sigil. For the relic, unfortunately, there isn't really any relic that interacts with burning, so what I do is pick a general utility relic. Some picks could be Relic of the Cavalier for boons upon using an engage skill, that is if you have access to a mount, Relic of Speed to get even faster when using swiftness, Relic of Aristocracy to increase Condi duration when applying weakness or vulnerability. Those are a few decent choices. Unfortunately, there isn't really any core game relics that are very impactful for this build, so the relic will end up playing a minimal role in this build. Let's get into the trait lines. If you're new to Guardian, I can tell you right now this isn't anything too unique. This is a pretty standard setup when it comes to building a burn damage Guardian. Even a burn Firebrand or Willbender still uses this base setup to work off of, so getting familiar with these traits will help you understand the foundation for when you are ready to move on to elite specs that might run similar traits. We're going with Zeal, Radiance, and Virtues. Zeal, we take bottom, top. Zealous Scepter for might generation. This will trigger when Virtue 1 passive effect triggers, which will be a lot. Kindled Zeal for a boost to Condi damage based on power. Remember when I said it's good to have a high power stat? This is why. So just a warning, if you swap around stat combos, be careful not to lower your power too much, or this trait loses effectiveness. And finally, Eternal Armory. Spirit weapons get an extra charge, but more importantly, apply burning. This build does use spirit weapons, so this trait works out great. Radiance, take top, middle, top. Inner Fire for Fury generation, Radiant Fire for burning duration and torch skill enhancement, Amplified Wrath for the burning damage boost and the Virtue 1 enhancement. Virtues take bottom, middle, top. Master of Consecrations will extend extend Consecration skill duration. Absolute Resolve will enhance Virtue 2. The passive heal will be a little higher, and it will cleanse more Condis when activated. Just a note here, an argument can be made for any of the traits in the second column. We can benefit from any of them. Personally, I like Absolute Resolve just as an emergency defensive skill, but the other two are good also. Finally, Permeating Wrath. This is huge. It will change how Virtue 1's passive effect will work. It will trigger in less hits and will burn over an area, not just one target. And when it burns in this area, it can hit up to 5 targets each time. This will generate a lot of burning, especially when you use multi-hit skills like Whirling Wrath, Symbol of Resolution and Punishment, Sword of Justice. All of these will trigger the Justice passive very quickly. And also a special mention to 2 of the minor traits, Renewed Justice and Power of the Virtuous. Renewed Justice will fully recharge Virtue 1 off of cooldown when you kill a foe, very useful when fighting large groups. And Power of the Virtuous, you gain Condi damage based on your vitality. So once again, if you decide you want to swap around stat combos, keep in mind you have 2 traits that give extra damage based on other stats. I mean, this really just drives home the point that the carry and stat combo is the best for this build, but you are more than welcome to experiment for yourself. For the skill bar, Litany of Wrath for the heal. This is the best heal skill. It will convert a percentage of damage dealt to healing. If you time this right with your damage bursts, you can 100% fully heal yourself with it. Utility skills, I go with Sword of Justice, Purging Flames, and a flex slot, which for me is usually a defensive skill like Stand Your Ground or Advance. There are a lot of good choices that you could use in that last skill spot. Honestly, an argument can be made for a lot of skills, but I'll give you a few examples for the flex slot. Stand Your Ground for the stun break and stability. This is such a powerful defensive skill, one of my favorites in the whole game. Advance for an on-demand Aegis, and swiftness to increase your movement. Core Guardian is pretty slow after all. Signet of Wrath for a passive Condi damage boost. Sanctuary if you are in need of a big CC skill. Signet of Judgment for passive damage reduction. Like I said, there are a lot of possibilities, so have a look around and try a few and see what works best for you. As for the elite skill, take Feel My Wrath. It's probably the best choice. Gives quickness, fury, and super speed. Great for a damage burst. Okay, now let's get into gameplay. How will this build approach combat? Your focus is going to be stacking the most amount of burning you can on your enemies. This will come from skills that apply burning and the passive burning from triggering Virtue of Justice. In theory, you could just mash skills off cooldown and still apply burning, but each weapon set has a basic skill combo that will be more effective. With the Greatsword, it goes Sword of Justice, Symbol of Resolution, Whirling Wrath, then auto attacks. With Scepter Torch, it starts with Sword of Justice, Symbol of Punishment, Zealot's Flame, then auto attacks. Your other weapon and utility skills will be used alongside these combos as part of your full rotation. Feel My Wrath can pretty much be used off cooldown for its boons. Purging Flames is a huge damage skill. You'll want to be using this as much as you can. Usually at the beginning of your skill combos, but if it's off cooldown and you see a good opportunity to use it, just use it. Some good opportunities include when a large group of enemies spawns or when a boss is standing still. Chains of Light will immobilize and apply vulnerability. Cleansing Flame can apply burning and cleanse Condi, but keep in mind it has a long cast time, so sometimes I only use it when everything else is on cooldown. And Virtue of Justice, remember we are getting a lot of our burning stacks and therefore damage from its passive ability, meaning we will not be activating it. If you activate it, you lose the passive ability while it's on cooldown, so only activate it if you are about to kill an enemy. That way Renewed Justice will automatically recharge it. So a full rotation, once you understand all the skills, might look something like this. Start on Greatsword, Feel My Wrath, Purging Flames, Sword of Justice, Symbol of Resolution, Whirling Wrath, Leap of Faith. Swap to Scepter Torch, another Sword of Justice, Symbol of Punishment, Zealot's Flame, Chains of Light, Cleansing Flame. By that time, you should have Feel My Wrath and Purging Flames off of cooldown, so you can start the loop all over again. And just keep in mind, you may not always be able to perform a perfect rotation. You might make mistakes or be interrupted by fight mechanics, and that's fine. Just as long as you stick to the basic skill combos and focus on stacking up burning stacks, this build will still output damage. Well, alright, I think I've yapped about this build for quite long enough. This build will get you set up well to take on open world content or even some group content as the core Guardian, whether you're new to the game and picked Guardian or you're just new to Guardian. This build should be a good choice to get you started down the path of playing as the dev's favorite golden child. If you decide to try this build out for yourself, I hope it works out well for you. If perhaps you can think of any little changes here or there that you might make to this build that would be beneficial, then feel free to respectfully share with the group. Anyways, that'll be all for this one. I hope you enjoyed or found this helpful. Thank you for watching, and until next time, goodbye for now.